The government is spending hundreds of billions of dollars to save the economy from COVID-19, and rightly so. But where on earth did they pull all that money from? And how on earth do we pay it back? Or more importantly, do we actually need to? It took us 10 years to get back to surplus after the global financial crisis, and the government has already committed 4 times as much money to fight this downturn. So, will we have to pay back the coronavirus debt for generations? Answering that question means understanding 3 things. Where does the COVID-19 money come from? How would it be paid back? And what happens if we don't repay it? Firstly, where does the money come from? The Australian government creates Australian dollars. If it wanted to, it could print as many dollars as it likes to pay for almost endless government spending. So why doesn't it just do that? Well, printing money usually means inflation, and inflation means money's worth less over time. And do that enough, and Australia looks more like Zimbabwe or Venezuela, with bananas that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, what's happening with COVID-19? The government is going to pay people a lot of money in the next 6 months, from job seekers and workers to private hospitals and childcare. It'll do that by borrowing money, or using bonds, which is basically an IOU from the government to foreign countries, investors, super funds and banks that buy them. But as of last month, there's a big new buyer for those IOUs, and it has deep pockets, the Reserve Bank of Australia. The RBA has already bought $30 billion in government bonds since March 20, and it says it'll buy as much as it needs to for as long as it needs to. So where does the RBA get all the money to buy those bonds? It makes it up.
It comes from a computer keyboard. It's just typed into existence. That's where it comes from.
Now that might sound mind-boggling, but even weirder is that the RBA is actually part of the government, which means at the end of this crisis, the government could end up owing money to itself. So how would it be paid back?
Well, this will be paid back for years to come. There's no secret in that.
Which usually means spending less, i.e. cutting government services, or getting more money, as in raising taxes. But doing either of those things while the economy is still limping along could do way more harm than good. So, is there another option?
It's not something that anybody ever needs to repay in full, or that should be.
That's Dr. Stephen Hale. He's pretty much a renegade when it comes to economics and one of the key backers of something called modern monetary theory, or MMT. He says there's actually no need for the government to repay that debt, and certainly not by raising taxes.
It in no way compromises the ability of the government to spend in the future. It is in no sense a burden on future generations.
Then what happens if we don't repay it? Well, nothing really, according to Dr. Stephen Hale. The RBA could keep making money out of nothing to fund government deficits. He says as long as we can keep inflation low, we'll be fine.
If it's not inflationary, there's no reason to aim for a surplus in the future.
Look, realistically, Scott Morrison and Josh Frydenberg probably aren't ever going to drink the MMT Kool-Aid. They love a surplus.
The budget is back in the black and Australia is back on track.
So the idea that they just turn their back on a surplus now seems laughable. But then again, 3 weeks ago, the idea that Scott Morrison would double the dole, pay wage subsidies and make childcare free were also unthinkable. So after 6 months of unconventional economics, can we actually go back to our old way of thinking? And what does all of this reveal about how we approach funding other social issues like homelessness or climate change?
All of these issues were really about a lack of political will and who you deemed worthy to be in an emergency or not.
That's US Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's a big fan of modern monetary theory, and she's not alone either. Millions of young Americans got behind another huge MMT backer, Bernie Sanders, and his policy of cancelling student debt. Because at the end of the day, it's young people who will be the ones holding the billion-dollar can at the end of this crisis. If governments aim for surplus, it's their taxes that will be raised and their services will be cut.
If they say they need to raise taxes, then they're wrong, and people should very loudly protest.
Because if it's as simple as cancelling the debt that one part of the government owes to another part of the government, then the case for never paying that back seems pretty clear to me.
Hey, if you enjoyed that, make sure you subscribe to The Feed's YouTube channel.
And you can watch these videos here. See you next time.